1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. Thursday show live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It's Thursday, we are live, and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, we've got Chris Beesley. Chris, how are things? All good?
Well, I think it was a bit of a reality check for us all last night, but glad to be here discussing it with Toe. I mean, he was telling me he feels underdressed after seeing me, but I think we're a bit like a bit of a managerial duo here. He's my number two. He'll take the warm up.
I'm the tracksuit manager, and Chris takes the press conferences. I'm in the background.
He's more the manager. You look like the assistant.
I'm the Leighton Baines, and he's the David Moyes, so to speak.
Yeah, he's my number two. So he get his hands dirty with the lads. But plenty to discuss. And to be fair, also, I mean, if you're finding it tough at the moment, which we all are, which David Moyes is already, as we say, great reaction to Ian Snowden, our first Goodison Park, my home of the new year. Some really lovely comments about Ian's thoughts online. I've seen reaction to that one. I'm pleased to announce, I think I've already mentioned it in an article of mine, first time I had on the podcast, that we've got Tony Cottee in the bag as well, and I know you were particularly pleased with that one, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously I'm behind the camera. When we're filming these interviews, you're obviously doing the interview, so I can kind of just sit back and just watch and enjoy. Do you know what I mean? Like the interview, and I think, I don't want to give too much away, but Tony was refreshingly honest with regards to his time at Everton. And he spoke glowingly about the club, without a doubt, but he was honest about his time and maybe slightly disappointed at how his Everton career went. But 99 goals he finished on, which is probably heartbreaking when you think about it, isn't it?
Well, he was gutted, really. As he mentioned, he joined Everton the year after they won the league, was there for 6 seasons, top scorer 5 out of those 6, and then left at the start of the season. He won the FA Cup. So to finish on 99 goals for him, he was absolutely gutted with that one, and he explains that how he felt he still had more to contribute. So I think it was, like you say, a refreshingly candid take, and somebody who he's a West Ham boy. He doesn't hide that, but a huge place in his heart. Everton, it's a big part of his life, and he spoke well. And as I also mentioned on there, without giving too much away, also scored the first ever Everton goal that I ever saw. So really good talk with Tony.
Happy memories then, yeah. So just a reminder, you can watch the Ian Snowden interview with Chris on the Royal Blue YouTube channel, and you can listen to it on all audio platforms as well. So it's a really good hour of your time. I'd recommend it. Say hello to Tony. How are things, Tony?
Yeah,
I mean, it's been a rigmarole trying to get you on this show. We didn't think you were going to get you on, and then last minute you were like, I can come on. So we obviously...
Not a bad sub to bring on, is it?
No, yeah. Right.
It's just a kid.
Especially when you're teaching the game.
It was just a kid.
From Tony Cottee to Tony Scott.
If Chris is the manager in the suit, you're the assistant in the trackie, what does that make me? It's not a good look, is it, when you think about it?
The owner in the stands.
Oh, not with this.
Director of football.
The trainer, magic sponge.
Yeah, I'll probably just have to take that. You all right anyway, Tom?
Yeah, good. Obviously, disappointing the result yesterday. I'm sure we'll talk about performances, and there was positives to come from yesterday, albeit the result was a negative one. But I think we're at a point where the season now where it just doesn't matter how we're playing, we just need points on the board as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Okay, well, today's agenda, obviously, Tony mentioned then disappointing, frustrating defeat at home to Aston Villa last night, so we'll react and discuss all the fallout from David Moyes' first game back in charge at Everton. As always, give us a thumbs up and drop us a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. And as always, we are live, so get your comments in, get your questions in, feedback, anything you want to drop on the stream. I'll do my best to read it out. We're going to have to try and do our best to do, well, under an hour, because the podcasts have been mammoth over the past couple of weeks, and we want to try and keep it just to the hour, just so everyone can get a chance to listen to the end, I guess, as well. I mean, Chris, let's start then. Initial reaction. Were you not disappointed, I guess, but well, yeah, I guess were you disappointed that there was no change in personnel? Because let's face it, Moyes pretty much picked the formation and personnel that Dyche would have picked. So were you maybe a little bit disappointed that he didn't tweak things a little bit, or is it like changing too much too soon is probably the wrong way to go?
Yeah, it probably was, to be fair. I thought there might have been a little bit more in terms of the like I say, both the personnel and the formation. It was slightly different, but yeah, I just wondered whether his fellow Glaswegian Nathan Patterson might have been given a shout, but on the same token, you know, he hasn't started the Premier League game all season, so it would have been perhaps a big ask on that score. Maybe we'll see the changes as we go forward now. I mean, it was certainly different the way he ended the game. You know, he changed it to 3-5-2, and it was perhaps telling that Jake O'Brien, someone who's hardly got a sniff under Sean Dyche, came on rather than Michael Keane. So maybe David's already looking to the future on that score with trying to make Jake O'Brien feel more like he's more part of the group, whereas Keane now in the last 6 months of his contract, it looks like he'll probably be looking for something else next season. So there were little things like that, but like you say, it was more or less the same as a setup that we've seen under Sean Dyche. But to be fair to David Moyes, he only said he had like a day and a bit with the players, so perhaps wasn't too much he could do on that score.
I mean, so clear that the same problems still exist even with a new manager in terms of quality, final ball, chances, like scoring chances and stuff. But was there anything that you could take from the game where you think that was different, or you saw positives there, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think there was positives to come from it. I thought the team was a lot more intense in terms of pressing. And what was very noticeable for me is that they were pressing high up the pitch. They weren't reverting to 10 men behind the ball consistently. They were trying to get on the ball. I think David Moyes spoke in the press conference in Chris about asking the players to get on the ball as much as possible, and that's one thing we haven't seen, especially from the midfield in the past 18 months. It's kind of the game's passing them by. So it was good to see the midfielders get hold of the ball. It'd be interesting to see the stats and the numbers behind that. I'm sure you'd see Mangala and Guy and Takore to a certain extent get hold of the ball a lot more. That pressing was really high. But I think what David Moyes probably found to his cost, if you're pressing high, then you probably get away with it against teams in and around you when you're playing against high quality teams, the likes of Aston Villa and maybe to a certain extent Spurs on Sunday. That quick turnover, if you do lose the ball deep in the opposition half, it can kill you straight away. And we found that when Jared Brantwaite lost the ball deep in Aston Villa's half, and it was within 2 seconds, it was in the back of Jordan Pickford's net. And that's what teams with quality can do to you. If you're pressing these teams, you've got to have a killer instinct in front of goal. Sadly, we haven't got that at the moment, but you've got to have a little bit of quality as well. So it's all being well players at the moment, pressing high, but you've got to have that end product when you actually do get the ball. So when Everton were pressing high and we're winning the ball in the final thirds, they were kind of running out of ideas. And that's just due to the quality on the pitch. Jasper Lindstrom, Jack Harrison, Abdoulaye Doucouré spring to mind. So there was a lot of positives to come from that match, I thought. More importantly, I thought the crowd engaged with the players responded to that crowd in patches. It wasn't a blistering atmosphere by any stretch of the imagination, but in stages and in patches of the game, they was engaging with the players and the fans alike, and they're going to need that for the remaining games of the season.
I mean, Chris, I agree with Tony. I think it was a definite, slight improvement. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. David Moyes has only been in there a few days, but let's face it, Villa are a good team. Champions League team. I think we definitely pressed up high. I think you could see the fullback, certainly Mykolenko, in the later stages of the game was getting high up the pitch, got a couple of crosses in. But I was quite disappointed in the start. It was definitely a slow start, and I think Villa certainly could have had at least 2 or 3. Well, they had 2 or 3 chances, and Pickford made a good save. So I feel that was probably the most disappointing aspect of it all for me.
Yeah, well, I sat next to Toe last night and I said it was a slow start because they weren't 1-0 up after 30 seconds, like they were under Moyes' first time round. So I think we all realised, it was going to be a bit different this time round. No David Unsworth like it was against Fulham, but yeah, joking apart, it was too loose, wasn't it, early on? I mean, it seemed like Amadou and Onana have been set up to be like the Goodison bogeyman, coming back there with that shot, and Tarkowski getting the deflection, and then, like say, Jordan Pickford making that save soon afterwards as well. It was messy, to start with, and they had to sort of steady the ship as the game went on. But like Tony said there, I was pleased with the way that they did engage with the fans in terms of that pressing side of things. But we are going to look for like some positives to take out of it. Vitaly Mikalenko, as you say, someone who's really struggled at times this season. He was getting some decent deliveries into the box, some creating chances for his teammates there, and that's been the problem. I mean, at times he's done well when he's been up against some of those elite right wingers, but he's been on the back foot. But you wanted to be getting forward a bit more the way like Leighton Baines, of course, would do all those years ago under David Moyes. So a bit sort of a few glimmers of things like that and stuff that that David can work with. But yeah, I think that was part of the problem, in that they were kind of on the back foot from the start, and I don't know what Ashley Young was doing for that back pass play. We thought he was rolling back the years and still playing for Villa when he played Watkins in, and Watkins missed that one. It was a big miss. He wasn't going to miss an opportunity like that again when he got the chance early in the second half.
Just stick with the starting lineup, because we're getting a couple of questions or getting a couple of comments. Do you think this contributed to the not lack of atmosphere? Because I still think it was fairly okay. It's obviously certainly not what Goodison was or can be, should be. Emery FC says, I think the bubble burst when the team news came in and the atmosphere reflected that. Terry Dactyl Spontaneous says, the starting lineup was disheartening, but it could be put down to sheer ignorance. It was Dyche's team that hasn't got results in the last 11 games. No wonder the result was the same. So was there any, I don't know, was that
I think, personally, the atmosphere has kind of been zapped out of Evertonians over the past 18 months due to the style of football. And in fact, you could probably go on to, there was a couple of games under Frank Lampard that springs to mind when the crowd was bouncing. Crystal Palace springs to mind. But even then, Roberto Martinez, a couple of games there. You probably go back to even Marco Silva, Ronald Koeman. We haven't seen Goodison Park on its feet for quite some time. You could go back to the David Moyes era when it was actually pumping. So I think one thing, the centre-forward thing for me, and I think that's what we've seen, was a noticeable difference. I get the atmosphere thing, and that'll come when Moyes gets his approach with the players and the players start pressing as a team and the quality, and you start scoring goals, and that's when the crowd responds. But when you kind of retreat, all of a sudden the players haven't got it within themselves to carry that pressing game on. So when the goal goes in, it's like it knocks the stuffing out of the crowd completely. In terms of the starting lineup, there's not much more he could do, is he? In terms of, as you've just touched on there, Chris, maybe Patterson as a right winger and put Ashley Young at right back. But other than that, it's as you were. Maybe, if I'm being picky, I'm a big fan of Harrison Armstrong, and I've been all season. I think he should. There's an argument to say he could play in like at that number 10 role. We've seen him against Bournemouth. He was man of the match, obviously, in the cup game, but that was against Peterborough. His hands are quite tied at the moment to get that. And we were looking, obviously, in the main stand, and sitting in front of us was Tim Abraham, Dwight McNeil and James Garner. I'm sure them three names will be in the starting lineup in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. So at the moment, his hands are tied. And I think you're being kind of picky in terms of looking at starting 11s. There's not much more he can do, especially offensively as well. Lindstrom, Harrison, Ndiaye. Maybe you could push Ndiaye. That is the conundrum, really. The element Ndiaye, where do you actually fit him in this team? Because he's the only one that can actually create in this team. The only one who looks like putting a killer ball through to the centre forward. So it's actually where you put him. Does Moyes kind of see him on the left? You push him into a 10 because he's the only one that can create. Abdoulaye Zakori's kind of run out of ideas in that number 10 role. So you're looking at where you actually fit your most creative player in there. Apart from that, you struggle in terms of numbers.
Well, you say there's not much he can do, but when we come on to what he can do in for the next couple of games, we'll see how your starting lineup matches up. I mean, I just felt like this is just my personal gauge of how I felt the match went. I felt okay, we lost the game. However, if that ended 0-0, I don't think anyone would have had too many complaints.
Even if Calvert-Lewin's got the equaliser at the end, everyone was like, come on, got 1-1
Moyes was
for
saying
results.
that, wasn't
Yeah.
he? Yeah.
Even Villa fans, I think, probably would have been like, tough game, probably should have won it, but fair on reflection, fair result for a point. I know it doesn't mean anything because we lost, but in terms of the performance and our attacking approach, it's the first time this season, probably the first time in a long time, where when we stand up in the lower Gladys, you know, if you've got a chance and you in the final third, I'm on my tiptoes when you think it's going to be a goal.
Yeah.
It's the first time that's happened to me in a long time, and I just felt that was a bit of a a gauge of how to measure our attacking approach. I don't know. I don't know what you think. I mean, let's talk individuals, Chris, because I mean, before we do, I feel like if we're harsh on players, we're only doing our jobs and we're just analysing what we've seen, and it's an opinion. Jack Harrison is obviously going through a bit of a tough time right now. The whole team's going through a tough time, but he was, particularly poor, in my opinion. And I think Connor O'Neill, who was at the game with you last night, he did a bit of writing. I'm just going to read a segment from one of his pieces. Connor says, playing Jack Harrison on the right is a classic example of putting square pegs in round holes. You might get away with it once, but it cannot become the norm. For the sake of his side and Harrison, Moyes needs to take him out of the firing line. I think on that, I said in a previous pod, he's not a right winger, and I don't really know where he fits into the team. Is it a case of he's just not playing in his right position, or is it a fact that he's just not good enough at this moment in time?
Well, they say whatever you think his natural position or his best position is, it's where he spent nearly all his time at Everton. I know he's had a couple of appearances in like the number 10 role, and he did all right there when he did. But it's how he's primarily been used since he came to the club. It is strange. It is puzzling how he's seemingly gone backwards this season, because we all remember that great goal he scored just after he signed against Bournemouth, and thought there's not many Everton players could do that in the current side. Score a goal like that. He's got that in his locker. But I don't know what has happened to him in terms of, it just seems like his confidence is shot. He was right getting up and down again last night. I remember he was certainly in the early stages. I remember noticing, because obviously he was on that side by us in the main stand, and he was really you could see he was trying to make an effort for the new gaffer and sort of show what he's all about. But ultimately, it's just not happening for him in terms of his decision making and final ball stuff like that. Him and Lindstrom's like in and out, aren't they? And neither of them obviously got an assist or a goal this season. But as Tony said, that chance for Dominic Calvert-Lewin at the end. Harrison's missed a few sitters last month, whereas Lindstrom's been unfortunate that other people maybe haven't got on the end of his balls and stuff like that, and he put it on the plate for Calvert-Lewin at the end last night, and that really should have been a last minute equaliser. So it's sort of much of a muchness that they've both struggled. Yeah, but for Jack Harrison, I'm not too sure. Maybe David Moyes can get a tune out of him. Like we said, he's only been with them for a day or so. So it is early days, but yeah, it's tough times for Jack at the moment.
No, definitely, and like right, Moyes has been there a short period of time. We'll see what happens. I mean, I know he's been with us for like 18 months, and I think a lot of people are still unsure regarding his qualities and whether he, should be in that team. Does it not speak volumes that a team in the Championship of Leeds are just happy to let him go out on loan?
Well, they don't. To be fair, they don't have a say on that. He's got a clause in his contract, so it's not a case of Leeds are just happy to let him go. He has a clause in his contract after they got relegated, where if a Premier League team comes in for him, they can go in. So it's not a case of Leeds going, we're not bothered about him. So just to clarify,
I don't think they'd be making a case to keep hold of him. When you think of Leeds at the moment flying in the Championship, they're playing with Dan James in that position as well. And if you look at it, would Jack Harrison get back in Leeds' team at the moment? There's an argument to say he wouldn't, and that's with the Championship side. Yeah. So by what gauge would you say that he should be playing for Everton? Listen, you can't fault the lad's effort, but quality-wise, it's just not there for him at all. As you've just touched on there, the stats are quite damning. And if you're a winger, if you're not providing assists, if you're not creating, if you're not scoring, then you can only got to look at yourself in the mirror. He's working hard, but listen, there's 40,000 fans that could go and work hard on that pitch. You want numbers, and that's why the best players get the biggest moves, that play for the best teams, because they deliver on a consistent basis. They bring in 10, 15 assists a game. They're getting 5 or 10 goals. Jack Harrison's numbers are astonishingly bad, and they speak for themselves that he probably arguably wouldn't get back in the Leeds team at the moment, and Leeds are in the Championship, and Everton's are trying to stay in the Premier League. So I think that says a lot for the qualities. And we're going to speak about it a lot, I'm sure, over the next couple of weeks. It all boils down to the recruitment. I'm sure if David Moyes was here, well, obviously here 18 months ago, would he have picked Jack Harrison from the Championship? There's an argument to say he loves Championship players, but would he look at the quality wise? Would he look at the desire? Would he be prepared to use a loan up on him? And Jack Harrison's on decent wages as well, by the way. So we've used a loan up. It's a big wage. I'm sure if David Moyes could obviously send Jack Harrison back, he obviously could. But with such ambrosia shortly that he'll be going back to Chelsea after being cruelly denied, obviously being out 10, 12 weeks out with hearing. So that's a possibility that we may get to use a loan up. And that's one thing David Moyes was quite astute on when he was at his first time at Everton. The loan market, he was unbelievable on. Stephen Pienaar, Landon Donovan, etc. Mikel Arteta, it's incredible. They become like really good, quality, classy Everton players, and he treated the money like he was own, like it was his own. And long may that continue. I hope that goes for what's happening in January transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, in the here and now, so I think the right wing position, among other positions in the team, is a real problem, isn't it? Because we're here now sat like being critical of Jack Harrison, but his replacement, Jesper Lindstrom's not, lighting any fires, is he? Do you know what I mean? He's not doing anything that you think he warrants a place in the team either. I mean, you've even got to the point where before his injury, McNeil's played on the right. I think Ndai's probably had a go there. We've got to get that sorted now, because the wings in this team, with the Beto and the Calvert-Lewin, are the ones where the positions where we're going to create our chances, aren't we? You would have thought so anyway.
Well, the way Everton play, obviously the way they set up, it's balls in the boxes on the Calvert-Lewin. There's not much creativity in there. So if you've got no creativity in the team, the only way you can score is obviously getting balls in the box. Everton don't play to get behind defenders, so it's getting balls in the box, win the second balls if possible. And when your wingers aren't crossing the balls in the box and putting balls on Calvert-Lewin's head, yeah, Calvert-Lewin had that great opportunity, but apart from that, didn't have too much, and he's been fed off scraps all season, really, just aimless balls into the park ends and Gladys Street, really. That's where they probably ended up. But the list is endless in terms of recruitment. We just talked about Jack Harrison there. Jesper Lindstrom wasn't really successful in Italy. He's come to Everton. Are we surprised that he's not got an assist or a goal to his name because he wasn't a success at Italy? Arguably not. Again, another loan used up. So it all boils down to the recruitment team. Can we do better? I'm sure David Moyes will be questioning these things right now as we speak.
I mean, we're talking about lack of quality balls into the box, but to be fair, Calvert-Lewin had chances, which we'll come on to. But just another section from a piece that Conor O'Neill wrote as well. So he says Calvert-Lewin has now gone 16 games without a goal, a run stretching back to September. That's why this chance, obviously the one he missed, felt so big. It felt like the sort of chance that could have transformed Calvert-Lewin in the side season. A goal here would have lifted the roof of Goodison. Instead, Blue supporters headed home with that usual sinking feeling. Was the missed chance as bad as it comes, or was it a difficult one to take?
Not about bad as it comes, but we would have wanted him to hit the target. When you wouldn't expect, Everton's number one striker to hit the target in those situations. I mean, it is tough for him that he's often so starved of service. He's ploughing the lonely furrow up there for so long, and he's not getting this support back. There's no sort of teammates in close proximity to him. But as you say, when these chances do come his way, he should be taking them. I mean, that's the difference. Erling Haaland can sort of hardly touch the ball sometimes, but when it comes to his feet, or he attacks it with his head or whatever, it's in the back of the net more times than not. So that's the difference, really, because that was one of the big things for me at the start of the season. I thought it was crucial that Everton retained the services of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, whatever happened in terms of his contract, and Jared Bramthwaite. So in doing that, I thought they were stronger than last season. But yeah, he's really struggled. Just the 2 goals when he's been more or less playing all the time. I know he's been dropped a couple of times. But 23 match drought last season, now 16 this year. I mean, he could point to the tactics that the previous manager was deploying for that. But that was a big chance for me. it's at least hit the target in those sort of areas. And as Connor points out, could have been so important, so sort of, David Moyes off, not to have, shared a point, on his first game, not a defeat, and Calvert-Lewin's ended the drought. Could have been a huge moment for everyone, and unfortunately, he spurns that opportunity, and then poor old Lindstrom's denied his first assist as well. So yeah, big moment all round.
I thought his all-round play was good yesterday. Yeah. I thought he was more or less back on it. Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, he looked like he had the fire in his belly a little bit more.
That's no surprise as well. The midfield were a lot closer to the gaps we've seen over the past in this season. It's been enormous. It's just been launching forward to Calvert-Lewin, trying to keep hold of it, and then we'll press. But it was very noticeable yesterday when the ball was eventually getting to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Mangala, Decore. They were trying to get in and amongst them. And there's no surprise what Calvert-Lewin's had a really good chance. He had a half chance in the first half. That's more than what he's had in the last 10 or 15 games. So that says a lot when obviously the midfielders are supporting and trying their best to get near him. If Everton play to Dominic Calvert-Lewin's strengths and add that little bit of quality, I'm sure you'll get one or two more chances, you'll bet.
I mean, we've had a comment here saying the number of straight passes was shocking. These players need to learn how to keep the ball under control. I guess the biggest culprit, and I'm not just picking on players, but just pinpointing, I think was probably Abdoulaye Doucouré. He's a player who would run 30, 40 yards to win the ball back, challenge for the ball and win it, and then he'd lose the ball with a 5-yard pass. I don't know. I'm just really, really frustrated because I have been and always have been a big advocate for Abdoulaye Doucouré. I think he's in danger a little bit of not tarnishing his reputation with Everton fans, because let's face it, he scored the important goal against Bournemouth, but he's just another one who's struggling as well, isn't he?
I suppose what you get, don't you, with Doucouré in terms of his hard running, the fact that he's able to sort of cover two positions in one, and he for the time he's certainly good for popping up with a goal. But yeah, I don't think the distribution has always been one of the strong suits for him, and unfortunately, just for the team, not picking on Doucouré as an individual, I think for the team now, this is something that existed for several years now. This. Ability, poor passing ability as a team. Remember Rafael Benitez highlighting it in his time at the club. So something has existed for several seasons now, and as frustrating as it is, because we think as laymen, professional football should be able to pass a football, but it is what it is, isn't it? They compared to many of their rivals, they don't have that sort of distribution ability, and that's not something you're going to change overnight, unfortunately. Yeah. I suppose, as frustrating as we were with these individual performances, we didn't actually learn anything new in terms of Jack Harris and Abdoulaye Doucouré, the way they've been sort of playing all season, really.
But David Moyes have learned something new, though. I think that's
he will.
That's the most important thing, isn't it?
I think it was a big wake-up call for him in this respect. I mean, of course, he'll have been keeping a close eye on the Premier League and Everton in particular, I'm sure, as being a football man that he was, recently out of work before he came into the job. He even said in his press conference, his opening press conference, the fact that Sean Dyche had gone through, told him about the players and stuff like that in terms of going through the squad one by one. So, he'll know all about their strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, for seeing him up close for the first time, I'm sure he'll have a much better idea now than he had 24 hours ago.
I think I will say is that Abdoulaye Doucouré should be, if you think about it, logically, he should be tailor-made to play in a David Moyes team. He should be the Thomas Tuchel. He should be the Marouane Fellaini. He should be perfect to play in a David Moyes team. If you think about it, playing in that false 10, so to speak, if there ever was one, he should be tailor-made to play in it. But sadly, and it'd be interesting to see who Moyes puts in that position, because it's quite clear Abdoulaye Doucouré struggles in that number 10 role. Who will he put in that role? Because for the last 10 minutes yesterday, he went with 3 up top. He had Iliman Ndiaye in the 9 role, and then he had Calvert-Lewin on the right and Beto on the left. So that was the front 3 towards the last 5 or 10 minutes. So it's going to be interesting to see who he puts in that 10 role in the next couple of weeks.
Do you think you can't really tell too much in training, can you? But for that 90 minutes against Villa, do you think he'll have been surprised, Moyes, at how poor the quality, was?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think that was a bit of a wake-up call to him last night. I thought in his heart he's probably gone in. He thought, right, I'll get 3 or 4 wins here. I'll keep us up. I'll look at the quality. Yeah, they're not as bad as what the pictures are getting painted out to be. And I think he must have, as that game was going on, he must have thought, wow, this squad's in need of some help. And it's very, very rare, as Chris, we've been to many press conferences, it's very, very rare a manager will openly speak about potential transfers and windows and speak openly and honest about it. I don't know how many times David Moyes said it on records. Yeah. Transfers, we need help.
He's saying it a lot. Usually he wouldn't say stuff like that, would he?
It's very rare for any manager in the Premier League to do that, to be honest. They say, yeah, we might...
Other than Arteta.
We might see what's happening, bits and bobs, but David, he just literally spoke, right, we need help. We're going to need numbers in the squad to beef it up. And he was openly saying as well, it's not just bringing numbers in. We need quality. We need quality players. And it was interesting. I had a look of, obviously, David Moyes, what he's been up to in the last couple of weeks and months. He's watched a lot of Manchester City games, a lot of their Champions League games, a lot of their Premier League games.
Do you think he was going to get their job instead?
Like to be fishing for Pep's job. No, but it's going to be interesting because he has, even though he obviously been out of a job since West Ham, he's been attending games on a regular basis. He's been doing a lot of punditry, as you guys know in here, as well as doing a lot of interviews. So he's been watching a lot of football, a lot of Manchester City games, and judging by what the likes of Ipswich have done with the likes of Delap, raiding him from Manchester City's academy. There's a lot of players coming from Manchester City's academy who are doing really well in the Premier League at the moment. So you wouldn't turn your nose up at one or two gems from City's academy, would you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, moving on, Chris, I guess when you get beat, you'd always try to look for any excuse, or well, certainly we would try and look for where it went wrong. Could we have any? Could we feel aggrieved with some of the refereeing decisions last night? I mean, I'd certainly say there was at least one penalty shout on Jesper Lindstrom.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Was the one on Calvert-Lewin as well? It was, the Calvert-Lewin one, to be fair, was very similar, I thought, to the James Tarkowski, Newcastle United, which got pulled back VAR on Sandro Tonali and was given. So, yeah, at the same end of the ground, of course, nothing given. So, yeah, I mean, there was a couple of shouts like that. I don't know, it's one of them, isn't it? Whereas there's probably stuff like that every game, but it does feel, and maybe every team sort of feels like this, that you don't get them. But when you've got that incident, which I said at the same end of the ground, is so similar to the Tarkowski one that was given. Yeah, perhaps Calvert-Lewin could feel aggrieved about that one.
Have you seen the replay of the Lindstrom one?
No.
It's a push in the back, isn't it? I've seen it.
Because at the time, I'll let you carry on in a minute,
I think there's that much grappling going on in the box. It's very, very difficult unless you get literally dragged down to the floor. The referees set up. To be honest, if the referee doesn't give it,
replay here,
the VAR will not overrule the referee. It's very, very rare. It's a high bar this season. It really is. Unless that referee points to the penalty spot, obviously it's not going to get given. It needs to be literally a stonewaller for VAR to send the referee over to the monitor and then for the referee to go against his own decision. Yeah. So it's very, very rare that unless the referee gives it, then get on with it. I mean, and I'm sure we could go on. Listen, how many times, I'm not defending referees here, by the way, but there's been countless amounts of times when Tarkowski and Brantwaite are dragging players left, right and centre in our own penalty area. It happens, but because we're starved of goals and the nature of where we find ourselves in, we're desperate, we're shouting and claiming for everything. On another day, the referee could have said, yeah, that's a penalty, but he didn't, and you've kind of got to get on with it, so to speak, because it's. I'm sure have we had a penalty this season? I don't think we have we? Yeah, Lemon scored one in the cup the other day, but I think that's it also. I don't think we've had a penalty all season. Yeah. A lot of averages suggest if you don't get in the opposition's area often enough, you're not going to get a penalty, and that's the nature of the beast, really.
No, I get it. Just on the Lindstrom one, I just felt that, I can't really remember the Calvert-Lewin one, but I know BBC Match of the Day made a thing of it. The Lindstrom one, at the time when I was in the ground, I thought, he's a bit weak there, Lindstrom. But watching that replay there...
Do you think he makes a meal of it? Hands in the air, and I think that's what puts
definite push.
He is, but if he goes down naturally, I think he's got more chance of getting it. It's when the arms are in the air and obviously the ankles are behind the back. It looks.
You have a go.
What's that back? Because he's already in the air and then he gets pushed, so he can't really control himself.
I wouldn't be giving. If I'm Premier League referee, I'm not giving a penalty for that. No chance.
VAR's got a bigger screen than that.
I'm not giving a penalty for that. And listen, I'd love to be blue bias glasses on. That's not a penalty for me. I think the Calvert-Lewin one has got more of a chance because he's actually grabbing hold of his neck, so to speak, and he's hauling him down. Where that's just like and Lindstrom throws his hands in the air and he makes it look a lot worse than actually what it is, to be honest. in my honest opinion. Anyway.
I mean, we'd put that replay on the screen, but we'd get in trouble. We obviously
Put it out there for
we
the
don't know.
viewers.
Yeah,
you can put clip stands on it. Just
it's easy to blame the ref, isn't it? Samuel Barrett, who it was. I just felt like Anana's constant foul, and I think he was quite lucky. With
Yeah,
the,
that was
the,
something.
the amount of challenges and fouls that he did to stay on the pitch at one point. I think there was one point where the players ran up to the referee and was like, "How many times?" Because he'd already been booked.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he was fortunate there. It was almost like he was on his last warning, wasn't he? A couple of times. But yeah, the players are all doing that. You can see what they obviously thought of it. I mean, it's interesting, really. And a player who was obviously he seemed to do more sort of to get the Goodison crowd up last season with his own theatrics and sort of encouragement. I know Mangala likes that as well. Yeah, it's probably interesting to see him obviously coming back to Goodison and the way he played, because by all accounts he's had a decent season for them. Maybe he's just more suited to their style of play. But yeah, I thought he was a lucky boy at times to stay on the field.
Pterodactyl says, "Forget the ref, we suck." We do. I mean, it was a sucker punch, wasn't it, the goal for Villa? What I mean is, like, we've had a relatively slow start. We found a bit of solid foundation going into half time, and then we conceded quite quick. But it did feel like we managed to. We looked like we were still trying. We were still pressing. Whereas if you go back to, obviously you went to the Bournemouth game. If you go back to the Forest game, when we were 1-0 down, 2-0 down, we just didn't make any attempt, I thought, whatsoever to try and at least score a goal.
Yeah, Dave Moyes was proactive, wasn't he? He got a sub on soon enough afterwards, and they did have a go. But I think you were actually mentioning to me, Tom, when it happened, how the crowd were getting engaged by that high pressing, and then next thing we know, Bramthwaite gives it away, and it's in the back of the net, and yeah, it was a sucker punch in that respect. But they had got away with it once already with Watkins, that from the Ashley Young back pass. But yeah. There were still chances, weren't there? As much as we bemoaned, that they didn't have a lot of opportunities to score. I think that's why it hurt so much when they did have a decent opportunity. Calvert-Lewin blew it. So yeah, that's the difference in these tight matches. You've got to take your chances when they come your way, even if you've not created too many.
Any worries on Brantwaite with regards to form at the minute?
He's been a bit patchy, hasn't he, over the last couple of weeks? I think Sean Dyche actually singled him out after the Bournemouth game, didn't he? Exactly. About his header. Listen, I think for that, a lot of the team were chasing the ball, and the crowd were, as Chris just on, they were engaging, press, and once the players can hear that from the supporters, it's very difficult to take a step back. Brantwaite was deep into the opposition half. We've seen Tarkowski was deep into the opposition half. So when the crowds are enticing and getting behind the players to all press as a team, it wasn't one individual, they were all doing it. So if you look just before Brantwaite loses the ball, for about 5 or 10 seconds before that, they're all chasing Decore, Guy, I think it was Lindstrom, or it might have been Harrison. They were all chasing shadows and trying to get the ball. I think they actually did win the ball, but Decore gave it back. And next minute they were all chasing again. And then obviously Brantwaite loses the ball, and then it's a killer. I just sensed throughout the game, nothing in it, by the way. I thought the intensity was there. There weren't much in it in terms of endeavour and spirit between the two sides. But you always sensed during the game that they've got that quality that'll hurt you. And I think if Everton would have had that chance that Ollie Watkins had, may have missed it, may have scored. But the difference is when you're playing them teams, them killer teams that are flying in the Premier League, Spurs is probably an argument to suggest that as well. If we do that against Spurs, we could come up stuck again. So I think the crowd and the players, Moyes is going to be very interesting to see what he addresses with the players, because it's so easy to get incited by the crowd to start chasing and high pressing. But if you do, you've got to be careful on what you're leaving behind, because I think a couple of times we got away with it in the second half. I think we left a 2v2. I think Pickford may have saved it, or it just went wide. But you're not going to get away with it for so long playing against quality opposition, especially Ollie Watkins. He's lethal in front of goal, isn't he? We've got Solanke coming up against us on Sunday as well. So I think it's just going to be interesting to see what David Moyes says to these players in terms of just hang fire. There'll be a period in the match where you have to go for it for 5 or 10 minutes, and I think that's what we've become synonymous with David Moyes' sides, and especially at Everton first time around, is that they've been in the game for so long, and then there's a little 5 or 10 minute spell where they're chasing after to try and win the game, and we've seen that, and we kind of come unstuck when we did that. I'm not saying the fans are responsible for it, but you're just trying to get behind the players, and it kind of undone us in the end, because Watkins, within 2 passes, that turnover, the overload, 2v2, Watkins was through, and it was past Jordan Pickford.
I think it's important on that, like, just to remember, Sean Dyche made a big, song and dance about keeping clean sheets, and he used that stat as a positive, didn't he? I just don't think you don't want to concede goals, but I don't think it should be the be all and end all if you've conceded a goal. You're obviously got to take a couple of risks to be able to score goals, and I think that's where we're going to have to find the balance.
I think if Everton play exactly like they played last night, from now to the end of the season, they'll stay up. They won't come across playing against high quality teams like Aston Villa, maybe Tottenham on Sunday. I think David Moyes might have to get worse before it gets better. But if you play like that against your Southamptons, your Ipswiches and your Leicesters at home, we've still got all to play. We'll be all right. I think we'll be all right if we play like that. If we beat the teams in and around us playing like that, I think we'll be okay. It's just when you're playing against quality opposition, the derby springs to mind coming up in a couple of weeks' time. If we play like that, we could come unstuck on the counter. So it's horses for courses, so to speak, in how you're approaching games.
Chris, obviously Breuer, Moyes revealed, he's going to be out for 10 to 12 weeks. Obviously a major blow.
Yeah.
Is that his Everton career over? I mean, we obviously don't know the ins and outs of this loan deal, contract, or whatever. Do you think we're going to be able to send them back and bring another loan deal in?
It seems so. That's the way. I don't think David Moyes would be mentioning it if that wasn't a possibility. I think you have to be careful with his words. So, in fact, he went on record with that. Yeah, it's very unfortunate. I spoke to Armando Breuer after the game at Arsenal. He's actually quite different than what you might think. You see him on the pitch there, the big unit. You just wonder what he's like. He's actually quite softly spoken and very...
Isn't he full-on Cockney accent?
I wouldn't call him... No, he's not a full-on Cockney. No, he's from Slough. It's estuary English. He's not Tony Cottee.
No, someone told me that he had a full-on Cockney accent.
No, he's not got a full-on Cockney accent. But he's from Slough. He speaks like people do in Slough, I guess. But yeah, he's quite softly spoken, very articulate, considerate in his words. So you see him out there on the pitch, and I don't know what I expected. Yeah, he'll be absolutely bitterly disappointed, because one of the things he said to me was just how grateful he was by the opportunity that Everton had given him, and how they'd stuck with him, helped him through his injury, because obviously he came to the club on transfer deadline day. He was suffering from an injury, so he'll be absolutely gutted with this. I know my colleague Joe Thomas has sort of bigged up the chances of Breuer actually doing well this season and potentially being the striker who leads Everton into the new stadium. I mean, that doesn't look like it's going to be the case now. It's going to, it's another untimely injury for him, and it looks like his Everton career is over for David Moyes to be saying that, because if he's out for 10 to 12 weeks, what we're on now, mid-January, that's the best part of the rest of the season now, and Everton in their current position can't afford to carry any passengers. So, it's brutal, but it looks like that's going to be sending him back to Chelsea, and it frees up a potentially crucial domestic loan spot, because whereas they're allowed more overseas loans, I believe, they're only obviously restricted to the 2 domestic loans, and they're both full with Harrison and Breuer at the moment. So, if he's not going to contribute to the end of the season, he's only played half a dozen games, and unfortunately, that looks like the end of his Everton career, and unless by some strange coincidence he was to come back again next season, but certainly for this term he looks done, unfortunately.
He'll be back for the semi-final, Chris. Listen, we'll probably speak about recruitment.
Have you been speaking to Joe Thomas?
I know, his FA Cup dreams.
Same. I think the same. No, I think, listen, you sign an injury-prone centre-forwards, and we've got quite a lot of them already at the club. And if you sign a centre-forward who's been constantly injured right throughout his career at Chelsea, I think he was injured at Southampton as well. Fulham injured, they sent him back. And when we're signing players of that ilk, what are you expecting? If you sign an injury-prone players, they're going to get injured. He was injured when we signed him. Yeah. And I think he's just one of them players who's just... He hasn't got the body. He can't cope with Premier League football. He's just constantly injured, and sadly like we've signed enough of them in the past. And if we continue to sign them, hence why we're using loans up. And we've touched on there before what Moyes is really good on the loan market. We've wasted our loans. We really have this season.
To be fair, Calvert-Lewin, can you still describe him as an injury-prone player now? He has been quite
I don't know.
consistent.
In the past, he obviously
In the
has,
past,
hasn't he? But
obviously,
since Dyche came to the club, I mean, for all the pros and cons about Sean Dyche, one things that he did very well was at least keeping Calvert-Lewin fit. He wasn't able to. That's it's the biggest thing is to get the regular goals out of him, but he did get him fit for a prolonged period of time for a player who missed a lot of football. I think for 2 consecutive seasons, played less than half the matches, so he's more or less been available most of the time for the past 18 months now. So
even better though as well. I mean, Schmitty's
Youssef Schmitty's been constantly injured as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Let's finish off with a couple of comments then. So Simon says 50% possession, 3 shots on target against Villa is an improvement in my eyes. We all knew it wasn't going to be instant success. Moyes needs more time with the players because it's not a quick fix. You on board with that?
Yeah,
or?
he's only had one training session with them, hasn't he? Introduced himself to them on, obviously, the day he was named the manager, and he's had one proper training session with them. So I think if you're having one training session with this team where they've been so used to plan A, launching it up front, and now they're trying to actually get on the ball, get crosses in, create chances, possession, as Simon's just touched on there. I seen a lot of positives yesterday, even what he's been in, 5 minutes, he's already got his feet under the table, and with potential of a couple of new signings in this transfer window, I think we'll be okay.
Slightly different opinion from Ravon91. Says, saw nothing better than I saw under Sean Dyche, but Moyes did say us and we in his pre-match press conference, and that's enough to get some fans all giddy. Uninspiring appointments plus performance. What do you think of that?
Ravon, that's Neil Fitzmaurice. He's a red, isn't he?
Yeah,
I mean, we've got a ringer.
This is red, yeah. Red jumping in.
Well, watch him.
Yeah.
Adam Wallace says, few thoughts. Jack Harrison's simply not good enough. Works hard, but attacking-wise, he is a non-entity. Decore looks like his legs have gone. And once again, offers very little going forward. I mean, to be honest, I slightly disagree with the fact that his legs are gone, because he just doesn't stop running. He does continue to go. It's just quality on the ball. It's just, that's not existent. That's the non-entity for me.
I think when you're playing in a 10 role as well, and the goals are drying up, and you're not creating chances, and all you bring into the table is running around. Off the ball, he's good. He's great. He presses well. He harries well. And I think there's nothing more certain than what he does in terms of he'll chase round for 10 minutes winning the ball and then give it away. So as soon as he gets it, sometimes it's infuriating. I can't see him being in the team much longer, to be honest. I think all Evertonians are probably fully aware of that. I'm sure David Moyes is aware of that. I'm sure it was a shock to the system what he's watching unfold in front of him yesterday.
Look, I love Decore, but thinking back now to the Bournemouth game, how did he technically score that goal? You know, what a fantastic goal. How did he technically wrap his foot round that and score that goal?
Could have ended up in Stanley Park easily. It could have easily done that. The
gods are smiling at us that day. Okay, last one. This is kind of aimed at you, Tony. Not kind of, it is aimed at you.
Wow.
So the Blues have said, Tony is kidding himself if he thinks the likes of Vardy or Delap wouldn't punish the mistakes we made. So I think it's in reference to picking up points against the lesser teams. But I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think if we have possession, and we're obviously in the opposition half quite a lot, and open, obviously, Lemons eyes, creating. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's got his goal scoring boots on. You can maybe push Mangala up. I think, obviously, if we play like that, we'll score more often than not against the low-quality sides, because they're just going to get deeper and deeper, where Aston Villa have got the quality. Listen, the Ipswich team, we beat at their own backyard this season 2-0. Yes, the lap was a handful, but that's relatively all they've got. They haven't got much of a midfield in terms of where we're at. Yeah, albeit our midfield isn't the best, but you'd fully expect Everton to be beaten. And if you don't beat Ipswich, and if you don't beat Leicester, if you don't beat Southampton at home, you probably don't deserve to stay in the Premier League. And we've got them 3 games coming up.
It's in our favour, isn't it?
And yeah, we look at the Everton fixtures coming up, and I think we've just obviously played Aston Villa. We've got Tottenham, we've got Brighton, got some tough games coming up, but then we've got that Leicester game, that's coming up in the first week of February. That's the 6-pointer. That is the one a lot of Evertonians will be looking at. If you can get something out of Tottenham, great. If you get something out of Brighton, great.
Bonus.
The derby's a bonus. That Leicester game is absolutely pivotal, and I think a lot will be riding on that. Hopefully Moyes can get a couple of signings in before then.
Final thoughts then, Chris, I guess. Just touch on what Tony was saying there. Games coming up. It's still going to be tough. But we have played in the last six of the top 8 teams in the league. So we all knew December was going to be rough.
Yeah.
We obviously picked up the 3 points against the top sides. We got the Wolves 3 points as well. So we probably came out of December with more points than what we originally thought. I guess it's the Forest and Bournemouth results which have both hit us for 6, but they're just both flying at this moment in time. So 6 of the top 8 teams, and we should have played Liverpool as well in that, and we didn't. It's a mammoth, hard task run that in terms of fixtures. So, can we look ahead to the likes of Tottenham, concede goals, Brighton, they're not pulling up any trees themselves, and think we can get points as a bonus in them. And then, like Tony said, the Leicester game has just got to be a must-win.
Yeah, it's been, as I said, a tough run. We don't want to be going back over old ground, but it was weird, really, for Sean Dyche. He probably picked up the point in the wrong games in that last month in charge.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because if he'd have lost, at City or Arsenal or even Chelsea at home, he could have gone, well, it's Arsenal, City or Chelsea. So, but to get like a point against them and then losing the manner, which they did as well at both Forest and then particularly Bournemouth without a shot on target, I think that's what done him eventually. But at the end of the day, you'd have half a season in charge, and for much as we can applaud what he did in those first 2 years in charge, saving the club twice and with the 2 points deductions last season, 17 points from one half of the first half of the Premier League season wasn't anywhere near good enough, and I think that's probably why he saw the writing on the wall. So David Moyes got a huge task on his hands, and as he said last night, be a wake-up call for him. But yeah, it's impossible that they can get the odd result here or there in this tough run, and then hopefully, as Tony said, if they do get some reinforcements through the door, they know they're stronger for that push there when the likes of Leicester and the others are on the horizon.
Any inspiration then in your final thoughts, Sol?
No, I think if we can get, I think if there'd be a minimum of 2 signings in this window, and if we can get them in, the ones David Moyes wants, more importantly, the ones the manager wants, I think it'd be very, very interesting to see what's happening behind the scenes, the conversations with Kevin Thelwell, if he's involved in them with David Moyes, if he's involved in Kevin, that we just don't know what's happening behind the scenes with the recruitment team, because obviously if you look at the players we've currently signed in the past, what we've recently signed in the previous 18 months, 2 years, albeit it was on obviously different financial circumstances, but listen, Everton are not the only team in Europe that are having to struggle and pay down payments on transfers. There's a lot of football clubs that do exactly the same and struggle to make payments like that. So, yeah, Everton are obviously one of them, but in terms of quality, the likes of Beto, Jake O'Brien, Jasper Lindstrom, Jack Harrison, there's some players in that team that David Moyes will have been watching yesterday and thought, wow. Well, we were in the press conference, and I think he probably looked at himself and going, right, this is a bigger task than what I actually thought it actually was. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of conversations going on with the freaking group in terms of getting them reassurances about players. So I think there'll be a minimum of 2 coming in this window, a minimum.
Fingers crossed. Okay, well, that is all for today's show. Please remember to give this podcast a like and subscribe to the channel. Support, as always, is greatly appreciated. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify, those audio platforms. Most importantly, try to enjoy the rest of your day. We will be back tomorrow with another podcast to preview Spurs, which is obviously the 2 o'clock game on Sunday. Are we on telly, by the way, for that? Or is it just
it's Sky.
It is telly,
I think Sky, 2 o'clock.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I've been Ian Croll, joined by Chris Beesley and Tony Scott, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.